Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at a few Visual Studio Code extensions that can greatly improve your productivity. I have around 20 extensions for you. We will look at each of them in details and I'll show you how using them can save you a lot of time. I'm very confident that you'll come out of this video with at least one new extension. So without waiting any longer, let's get started. So the first one we're going to take a look at is called Auto Close Tag. So it's the extension over here. So what this lets you do is I'm gonna go to a sample file. So we have a sample HTML file over here. So whenever you have a tag, let's say a P tag, all you need to do is do the P tag and then close it. And immediately vscode is gonna create the end tag for you. If it's like an anchor tag, all you need to do is start it and then you get the completion. So it's very handy. You don't have to manually close the tag, which can save you a lot of time. All right, so that's the first one. The next one is called Auto Rename Tag, which is very similar. So I'm gonna go back to the HTML file we have over here. So let's say you have the A tag over here, but now you want to change it to a different one, a P tag. So you can put your cursor at the opening tag, and then if you just change the opening, the end tag changes itself. So let's change the P to a div. So change it to a div, and the end tag changes too. So it's very handy when you're writing HTML code, because you literally have to write like one less tag every time you change it. So it's super handy, both the auto close and the auto rename. The next one is called Better Comments. And you can see over here how that kind of helps you visualize your comments better. So I'm gonna have a Python file over here. Let's do it over here. So let's have 3 comments, right? Let's say we have hello there, and then this needs to be done later. Are you sure this is correct? So let's say we have 3 lines of comments. So with Better Comments, what you could do is automatically make them stand out. So if you want something like an error message or something like a warning, you can put the exclamation that's going to turn it into red. So let's say for hello there, we want it to be a warning. So if you just put an exclamation, it becomes red. Let's say you want to have like a to-do. So if we have a to-do, you just type to-do and it turns orange. And then you also have the blue one where if you put a question mark, it turns blue. So it's a very handy way to make comments stand out. So in your code, if you have a lot of comments, but there are only a few that you really care about and you want them to stick out in the future, you can put these tags like a to-do, an exclamation, or a question mark, and they're going to stand out in a different color, which is very handy in my experience. All right, so the next one is super cool. So we have the bracket pair colorizer. This is the second one. You can also use the first one, but I think the second one is more optimized. So what this does is it closes the bracket for you. So let's say you have like a Python function over here. I'm gonna do one more level of zoom. There you go. So let's say you have a function here called say hello. And then let's say you have like a bunch of parentheses. So you see every opening one is matched with the same color in the closing one. So you have a yellow opening brace closing a yellow one, and then you have purple, blue, and then yellow again. You can add more colors to it, but by default you only get this many colors, but they alternate so you can always see where your closing tag is. It's super helpful when you have a lot of code and you want to see if you closed all the brackets correctly. You can just take a look at the colors to match them up properly. So super handy. The next one is called Color Highlight. So what it does is for a CSS color, it just colors it for you. So I'm gonna have a file over here. Let me see if I can try and do it. So if we have like a style, and let's say we give it a background color, and then let's say we have, let's just give it a hashtag, right? Let's give it F99157. All right, so see, over here you can see the color over here, which is very handy. I mean, if you want, you can even change it, which is like even cooler. So you can just change it right from right here. And later on, you can just see a preview of the color here. Very handy when you're working with a lot of CSS code, whether in HTML, CSS tech stack, or like a React or something else where you have to define the CSS of the color. So very handy. All right, so the next one is CSS Peak. I don't think I have a very good example of this one, but we can just take a look over here. What it essentially does is it lets you go into, so if you just look at the GIF over here, if you click on the class, it's going to directly take you to the CSS file, which is pretty handy. I don't use this as often because I tend to write most of my front-end code in React, and I use a framework for most of the styling, so I don't have a use case to write manual CSS files. But if you do, it's a very good one to have. All right, so the next one is Docker. This is a very, very powerful extension. If you have a workflow that involves a lot of Docker, you can get most of the functionality from this. You can spin up a container, you can debug a container. So I'm just gonna show something more basic, which is gonna be just if you have a Docker file, it auto-completes, or it has like some kind of a Intellisense that lets you, that suggests you what Docker commands are there. So if you're familiar with Docker, you have expose command. So if you just do expose, it gives you the syntax, expose port. And then you have, let's say, run commands. Does Docker have a run command? Yeah, I'm not very familiar with Docker, but yeah, you get the point. You can get autocomplete with Docker for Docker files. But even more importantly, let me just go back. More important than the syntax helping, as you can see, we have expose, from, run, all of them. You get a lot of help. And then you can even build the image like the example shows over here. And then you have a Docker tab over here where you can manually manage all your containers. You can manage all your images. Let me just try something out. This might be helpful. So I do have Docker in my computer. So I'm gonna turn Docker on. Let's give it a moment for Docker to turn on. There you go. So Docker engine is starting. And then I'll just show you like a quick example and let's see if it's possible. So we have Docker over here, and then we don't have an image here, but can we like try downloading an image? Let's see. It's gonna be a live demo, so image download. So we're just gonna pick one, just a random one if we can. Let's just do the Python one. All right, so we can just do this one. Docker build, Docker run. Does it have a Docker? All right, let's see. So we have a bunch over here. This is the most stable one. So we can just do a Docker pull Python. There you go. So let's try doing it, right? We're gonna, might tell me to log in though. If we do a Docker pull Python, it should pull the Python image. Let's see if it does. So it's downloading. We're gonna wait for it to pull the image, and then we're gonna see if it shows up in the extension. So we'll give it a few minutes for the image to download. And let me just go over here. So it should show up over here. And if it shows up over here, we're gonna see if it also shows up in our editor. Right, all right. Just a few more minutes. It's downloading all the layers, and there you go. So we have it over here, the Python image. Let's see. It's Docker running. Yeah, I think you have to like, oh, there you go. So we have the image, that's the Python image. And we can run the image from here, or we can even like, if we run a container, we can just have it here. So I'm pretty sure if we run the image, we run it. There you go. So we have a container running. Get started with Docker containers. And you can see it over here. Pretty sure you can stop it from here. So I'm stopping the container, as you can see. And it's going to take a while to stop our running Docker container. Stopped. If we go to our Docker UI, this one is stopped. If we delete it, remove it, close it, no container here too. So as you can see, it's very quick. It syncs up with your Docker running in your local machine. Very, very handy. All right, so now that we're done with Docker, we have this one, which is ES7 syntax help for React, Redux, GraphQL, or React Native. What it does is gives you a bunch of very helpful helper functions. So let me just go to a JS file. I should have a JS one. There you go. So let's say if you want to, in React, if you want to create a functional class, a functional component, you can do RFC and then enter. It creates the boilerplate code for you. I think there you have one for with the export, you can use that. And then what else? You have like a Redux helper. So this gives you the map state to props and map dispatch to props. And then you have more things here, like you have an arrow component. So it's just gonna be like a simple component. I think there's some import too. Yeah, so if you do IMP, you get the module name that you can just substitute. So yeah, very handy. You can have, I think I use it mostly for RFC, but yeah, you can use it for React, GraphQL, React Native, and it's very easy. It saves you a lot of time. All right, the next one is Excel Viewer. So this is not directly related to your coding workflow, but it's very common to work with CSV files if you're working on any kind of application. And what this lets you do is, if we look at a CSV file, so you have a CSV file here. So let's just imagine this had like way many rows, right? Let's just let's see. That does not look right. We're gonna, yeah, so let's just copy paste the 3. There you go. And then let's just paste it a bunch of times. Yeah, so as you can see, it can get very confusing to read this. So you have the column names. What's going to be very helpful is to see this in like an Excel spreadsheet. And with the extension over here called Excel Viewer, what you can essentially do is click the icon over here called Open Preview. And it opens your CSV data in table format. I don't know if you can edit it. I think it's only for viewing. Yeah. So you can view the data much more cleanly, like compare this to this, much more readable. So very handy if you're working with CSV data in any of your application. All right. So the next one is GitLens. This is very handy if you're working with a Git repository, whether you're working on it yourself or with a bunch of other people. You can look at Git history from within the file. So I have a Git file over here, news demo. Oops, where's news demo? There you go. So over here you can see I committed this code a month ago. It gives you, I think it gives you the, yeah, it gives you the branch. It gives you the commit number. And if you have it connected to GitHub, you can just click through. Let me see if that works. Allow. Continue, authorize. I'm gonna just put in my password. Allow, open. All right, so now let's try going to it. Right, so you can see everything that was committed in that commit. And then another example is, I think you can just, you even get the diff. So what was committed. So the right hand side is everything that was committed in that commit. So very handy. And you can get all the information. You have a drop down, search for commit and search for open changes. Oh, you can even open your changes, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so very handy. You can do a lot of things. And yeah, so that's another one. I'm gonna skip over the Jupyter ones because I don't use them anymore. There is One Dark Pro, which is a color theme. There are a bunch of color themes one you can use, but I won't go over that. All right, the next cool one is paste JSON as code. What this lets you do is, let's say if you have like a sample JSON file. Let's say I have a sample JSON file here. So it has quiz, and then it has two attributes, sport and math, and then within that we have a bunch. So what this does is you can do Command-Shift-P, and then you can have open quick type for JSON. If you hit this, what this plugin does is it parses the JSON. It can be like a permanent JSON file, or you can grab a JSON from your API response and then just paste it in a file, and then run the command. And what quick typing gives you is all the attributes in your JSON blob typed over here. Let's look at an example. We have sport as an object, and it has one attribute Q1. We have class sport Q1, which is of type Q1. Now, what's type Q1? Q1 is an object with three attributes: questions, options, and answer. Let's find the Q1 type. There you go. Q1, we have question, which is a string, options, which is a list of string, answer, which is a string. Very handy if you have a complicated JSON blob and you wanna type it very quickly. If you have like a MongoDB database, which takes in like a JSON object, it's very easy to create the MongoDB data model using this. So very handy, would highly recommend. All right, so next one is Path Intellisense. So this is very handy if you have any kind of import you want to do. So let's say you want to do, I'll just try this. Yeah, so if you have like a relative import, you can literally get your Intellisense working over here. So we can do like env, and then it gives you all the files, lib, gives you all the files. So you can see, very easy to write import statements without looking at your tree itself. All right, so there's that. Prettier is, I think, the most used vscode extension. It just helps your code look pretty. You don't have to worry about formatting the code. You can just write the code, save it, and Prettier is gonna make it look pretty just by like reorganizing lines and moving things around. Very handy, saves you a lot of time. Lots of tutorials are out there on how this works, so I won't get into any more details. Python is literally just gives you some helper functions. So let's say we have a list, right? I'll just get rid of this. All right, so let's say we have like dev change address, right, and all addresses. And now let's say you want to append. So if you do all addresses dot, it gives you the list of functions that you can, methods that you can execute on the list. So yeah, handy when you write a lot of Python code. And I think it also lets you do one thing. Let's do this. So let's just do append 1, 2, 1. And then let's say return, and let's just call it. So what you can do is, if you're on a function call and you hit command, you get a definition of that function, and then if you click it, it takes you to the definition. So a good example of this would be here. So let's say we have the get manual articles function. You want to know what this function does. You hold on to command, you get the preview, and now you want to get more details. You just click onto it, it takes you to the function. Very handy if you're writing a lot of Python code. It gives you a bunch of other benefits when writing Python, but I'll let you look at the documentation for that. All right, we're nearing an end. The next one is remote SSH. This is very handy. So let's say you have a remote computer that you want to SSH into. Instead of doing it from the terminal, you can do it from the editor itself. So to give you an example, I have a remote machine running in DigitalOcean, and let's say I want to log into that through SSH and then do something with some files. What you could do is just click over here, bottom left, it's called open a remote window, connect to a host. My host is already saved over here. If it's not, then you can just do configure SSH host and then configure it from there. So we're gonna go back, connect to host, and then connect. It opens a new window, setting up SSH. And now I am into my Docker container without going through any terminal. And now if I wanna open some file, you can do, let's say, code dev. Let me just put the trust. There you go. Now I'm in my remote machine, but I can change all my code from here, which is insane. So you don't have to. So if I look at the terminal, I'm still in root. It's insane. You can easily change all your files here. You don't have to interact with the terminal or anything. Very handy if you work with remote machines a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. There you go. So highly recommend remote SSH if you are using a lot of remote machines, whether it's like databases running on other machines or maybe like a prod machine that you have which you SSH into. Very, very helpful. All right, Swagger view. All right, this is another good one. So let's say you have Swagger files, which is Swagger files are pretty much documentations for API. It's a very common standard where you can define your API, your endpoints, what do they take in as input, what the return type is, and you have either a YAML file or a JSON file. So you can see the file over here, and it's you can read it from here, but it's not very pretty because you need to actually know what you're looking for. Swagger has a UI which you can use, and using the extension over here, Swagger Viewer, all you have to do is open the Swagger file, hit Command-Shift-P, which opens your command palette, look for Swagger, and then you have Preview Swagger. Hit it, and your Swagger file is visualized over here, which is very handy. Now you can look at your path, which is users, click it. You're getting all the parameters, you get your response, everything that you have defined over here, you can run it right here. So very, very helpful. And you can even run you can even execute the endpoint from here, which is very handy. So super helpful when you have a Swagger file and you want to view it from within VS Code. You can use the extension. All right, so we have Swagger Viewer. The next thing is a simple one. It's called VS Code Icons. What it does is, if you look at the left bar over here, each of the file has a different icon. So we have an HTML icon, a JS icon, a Python icon, and a Dockerfile icon. Without it, all of these would be generic file icons. So very handy. If you like icons, you can even customize it. I just have the default one. So super, super handy. The next is YAML support. I don't really use it as often, so I'm gonna skip past it. Oh, and the next one is YAML to JSON. So it's pretty common to convert a YAML file into a JSON file and vice versa. And you can go online and do it through like one of the online tools, or you can just do it with this extension. So I showed you the YAML file I have over here, .yaml. Let's say I want a JSON version of this. So all I have to do is YAML to JSON. I have to select it, and then I have to do YAML to JSON, convert clipboard, convert selection or document. And the conversion was successful, and you see the JSON version of the same Swagger file. Undo, and you get the YAML version. So very helpful if you're going in between the two. And I think that's all. Yep, that's all the extensions. Hopefully you have at least seen a few that you did not know before, and that's going to help you greatly. With that being said, I think that's all for today, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.